Hi everyone, I'm America Josh. Welcome to Regular Checkups, my weekly summary of the news for expats in the United States. Every week we've got different panelists on who can answer questions about their industries, tell us what they see day to day, and make recommendations for your future as expats living in the United States. These aren't going to be deep dives, but each and every week we'll answer as many questions as we can and hopefully give you some comfort knowing that you've got all the information you need at your fingertips. So, that leads me to introduce our panel for tonight. I want to thank these three for joining me and taking their time out. We've got Zjantelle Cammisa Markel, owner of Cammisa Markel Immigration Law Firm, Lisa Baden, finance leader and who is temporarily back in Australia and has been through the whole quarantine process, and Jason Stoch, a certified public accountant at Uptrend Advisory. Thanks very much for joining me, everyone. I'm going to unmute you all now because I realised you're sitting there quietly. We divide every week into three sections: past, present, and future. Past, we're going to hear about how our panelists have gotten here tonight and how their industries have gone over the last few months. Present, we're going to talk about what our panelists are up to right now and their industries and how they're changing and what they're doing right now at the moment and answering your questions. Then future, we're going to talk about recommendations and ideas that they've got for you and how they see things changing in their industries in the future. Before we get to any information though, we do need to flag that this webinar is strictly for informational purposes only, and it is not intended, nor should it be relied upon as a source of legal or financial advice or opinion. As always, it's important to let you know that because everyone's situation is different and not everything we say tonight will necessarily apply to you. So, formalities, legalities, all out of the way. Zjantelle, I'll start with you. Hello, thanks for joining me. How are you going?
I'm great. Thanks, Josh. Great as you, right? You can
Sorry?
hear me?
I can. Oh, perfect. Go.
Okay. Yeah, no, things are great. I think, we're all at a point where, it's a little bit, we've been in quarantine for so long. So I think that you can have days where you start to struggle with it. But what I heard this morning, and I thought was a good thing to remind ourselves, is that we should come to this with a mind of gratitude, right? Because we are all in a good spot, especially if we're on this Zoom. It means we're healthy and we're, we have a lot of, we're hopefully working, or if we're not, we've got job prospects hopefully coming up. And, the thing that we've mostly got is our health, which is a big thing. So
absolutely. No, couldn't agree more. Can you tell everyone just a little quick snapshot of your background and how you've made it onto this panel tonight?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very long story if I went through it all, but I'll give you the quick synopsis. I'm originally from Adelaide. I moved overseas in 1998 and thought I was going to be gone for 6 months with my backpack around Europe. While in Europe, I ended up meeting a boy from America. So by the time, that was sort of later, closer to 2000. So in 2000, I moved to New York and I've been here ever since. And I've been doing US immigration law since then. So a long time. So I was practicing immigration law from before there even was an E3. So I went through a bunch of different visas myself that were not E3s. In fact, by the time I got a green card, I don't think I ever was on an E3, even though I'm an Aussie. So given that I've been through the process myself and a lot of my staff have been through the process, we have 5 Aussies amongst our staff as well. We feel quite adept at being able to advise people in that as well.
Awesome. And are you currently coming from your home right now? That's where you're beaming in from?
In my home, yes.
I love it.
I live with 4 kids, a husband, a big dog. Yes.
And is the office, I know it's a remote office at the moment, but would you say that's been sort of busier or quieter, or it's pretty much sort of business as usual for you professionally at the moment?
Yep. So we've all been working at home, which it's actually been pretty good. I'm really proud of my staff. They were able to just roll into it. There was the Monday when the lockdown kind of happened. On the Thursday, I sort of thought it was going to happen. So I made sure that everyone could log into their computers remotely and that it would work. And that did. And there have been some changes with immigration which have helped as well, in that we're allowed to submit filings with scans of signatures rather than wet signatures. So that has been useful. And yeah, so we've been working from home. We start with a team meeting in the morning where we all get on a Google Hangout. We see each other and we plan out the day, and then we're triaging. It feels like So between busy and less busy, it has been really busy. I mean, my average bedtime has been 3 a.m., but it's been busy in a way that is more advisory, and then having to have repeat calls with a lot of clients, because what we thought was going to be the case in March is no longer the case in May. Yeah. So we've had to change strategies for people along the way. So yeah,
okay.
it has been
a bit of an adapting, but hasn't...
People furloughing and getting laid off, and can I apply for unemployment insurance? So a whole plethora of questions, which, you know,
I think we're going to come to a bunch of those very shortly. Jason, same question. Are you currently in your office? Hello, thanks for joining us. And do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me. I am in my home office. I was pretty lucky. I just relocated back to San Diego, California from Sydney. I was there for about 3 years, but before that I was in America and just, trialing where we wanted to settle with my wife, who is American. But yeah, we got here literally a week before the pandemic started on my green card. So I got super lucky. Aside of that, I guess it's been very busy for me as a tax accountant because, I'm sure people have heard, but the tax deadlines were extended from April 15 to July 15. So normally this time of year I'm on break, but no, I'm still very busy. So it's been good. Working from home has been great in that I've gotten more time to structure my day. I don't have a commute, so when the day is done, I'm already home. So I'm able to.
The one upside.
Yeah. And I'm able to spend more time with loved ones and exercise, and nice. I think it's been good. It's a good proof of concept that, hey, you don't always need to be in an office and have FaceTime to get everything done.
Yeah, just on that, to recap the extension of the tax dates, may as well jump into a question. So it's normally already happened, but that is just personal tax filings. You've got until, did you say July 15?
Yeah. So at the federal level, it's been extended from April to July 15. I know California and New York have also extended it to meet the same deadline. There are other states that you would just have to check up if they've extended it, but those are the main two.
Okay, good to know. So yeah, federal has, and New York and California have, but it's worth checking to make sure that you might have state filings still, even though those have extended. And the industry in general, you think, it's been going pretty normally. I mean, it's been busy and extended that time with the extension of those dates. Things have been pretty as business as usual.
Yeah. I think things have still been pretty busy because even though usually it's a big ramp up to April 15, it's essentially just kicking the can down the road to July. So it's resulted in a lot of people taking on more clients because now we've got additional time. We're dealing also a lot with advisory type of questions like 401k withdrawals, super withdrawals, what's the best thing to do, and also unemployment questions similar to Zjantelle.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're definitely going to cover some of those questions. But Lisa, hello. Thank you for joining us. You've got a little bit of a different background story on how you've gotten here tonight. So I believe you're back in Australia. Do you mind giving us a bit of an intro about what you've been up to in the last couple of weeks?
Sure. I am in my parents' place in their dining room at the moment in Sydney. I work New York hours, so this is after this call, probably going to bed. But how I ended up here was I was changing jobs at a very unfortunate time. And with all the embassies closed, there was no way of getting a new visa. I am on an E3. And so how we arranged it with my new employer is I was going to work from Australia as a consultant for them until I can actually get an appointment and a visa to come home. And luckily I do actually have an appointment. So you can get appointments at the moment in the consulate in Sydney in July. I think that's the earliest appointment at the moment, but it is open and available.
Okay. So I know we had a number of questions about that process of you getting back. And I think some people just want to hear a firsthand sort of recollection of you'd normally go to the airport and you sort of just, breezing through, going through what you're going to buy and how much candy you can carry and hand luggage. Do you mind giving us a bit of you arrive at the airport, just a bit of a snapshot of how that whole process works from arriving at the airport in the US and then the process and how you felt, sort of what changed, what's different?
What's really the first thing that strikes you is it's empty. Everything's empty. So I flew United the the flight from Sydney to New York to San Fran to Sydney. Everything was on time, so there was no delays. I was very lucky. I felt, seeing that when I was actually there at the airport, half the flights on the screen, or the already shortened list, half.
Whoop. I think I might have lost Lisa.
Like a Starbucks is open. But no, the whole process was okay. Everyone had a mask on, so that was fine. Getting on the plane, I think the only thing that was a little bit different, I was in business class, so naturally I was quite distanced from everyone else. The flight attendants didn't wear masks, but everything that they were serving, they can't serve hot drinks, they can't serve alcohol, nothing that can be poured. They can't touch the foods that.
Oh, I think we might be having some connection issues. Sorry, Lisa. I think we might be having some connection issues with Lisa, but because I can see her face paused, I'm going to jump back to you, Zjantelle, if you don't mind, because Lisa's scenario is one that we're hearing from a few people, and I'll come back to you, Lisa, in one sec. In terms of the process, what are you recommending to people at the moment if they're coming up to the end of their I-94 dates, or they're coming up to the end of their visas and they want to renew and stay? What's the sort of general advice that you're telling people at the moment?
Yeah, Josh, that's a really great question, because, we started with those conversations in March, and in March it was, yeah, look, let's book your appointment in June, July, those should be fine. We have clients that do have appointments still that have not, all the appointments have been cancelled for May, for clients that had appointments in May. June appointments have not been cancelled yet, so we're closely monitoring to see what happens with that. The first appointment we have in June is June 4th. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks if those appointments remain. If those appointments in Australia in June, we have people in London, Bahamas, Paris and Australia with appointments in June and July right now. So it'll be interesting to see if those go ahead. And if they do, then we feel relatively confident that people could continue with booking an appointment and going that way. And if not, then we do have, a backup plan of filing within the US, the I-129, and more people are looking towards filing from within the US. I think what's important is analysing whether your case, what your case is like. Is it a strong case to be filed from within the US as an I-129? And that's something that people would determine with their attorney. And if not, then look at other options. So, for example, I was on the phone with clients this morning who in March, they were waiting for a job offer to come through, which they thought would come through by June. Their I-94s expired June 4th. So, it's not even their I-94s, it's the end of their 60-day grace period that ended. So they have to do some sort of action by then. So whereas before Australia wasn't as attractive to people before, whereas Australia's becoming more attractive to people because you could leave, go there and start for your new employer like Lisa did. And then now that the mail-in option has reopened in Australia as well, people that are there, even Lisa, could send their documents into the mail-in option and have their visas back in about a week and not even have to wait for the appointment that they've got booked there that's in July or August if they want to come back sooner. And the other attractive thing about Australia right now is that so you could work remotely, or if you've been furloughed, or if your salary has gone below the prevailing wage, you can work for your employer or not work for an extended period if you're furloughed from abroad. These particular clients this morning, they were New York strong. They were like, we are not leaving. But the job offer to be able to file the I-129 in the 60-day grace period hasn't come through. So they're willing to actually file to change to tourist status, to wait, which they can gain another 6 months, to wait till that job offer comes through. And then at that point, we'll see where the consulates are at. If they're open, they'll go abroad. If they're not, then we will refile from within the US, or at that point, they'll fly back to Australia and do the mail-in option.
Okay, so and that transfer to that visa, that's sort of an E3 or whatever to a B1, B2. That's what you're talking about there.
Yes. And so I think right now it's really important to sort of have a really good relationship with your attorney who's advising you, so that you can see what's happening at the consulates to then make a decision that works best for you. If we thought that Barbados and Bahamas, Barbados is always a popular one with the Aussies here, was going to reopen because they had no cases. So we thought, okay, they're going to probably reopen really quickly. And same with Bahamas. Bahamas, you can book in August right now. But I think that it's showing now that the countries with the least number of cases are the ones that I think that are going to actually open the slowest, because they're protecting their borders. So when you look at, there's a site called IATA that tells you which countries are letting people in and not. And the Caribbean's actually got their borders completely closed, even to residents and so forth. Whereas we can, as Australians and the people on Main 3s, can actually get to Australia and get back in from Australia. So that's why that's become a more attractive option than the other closer consulates, which were more attractive options before.
Okay. And that website, by the way, it's iata.org. Is it IATA.org? Yeah, yes. Just for those people. That's a good summary of where flights are going in and out of and what countries have recommendations and border closures at the moment. It's a good one to use as a resource.
Definitely.
If you are transferring internally, what are we seeing with USCIS sort of turnaround times at the moment? Is that something, because it's commonly said that process is quite laborious and long and it takes months. Are we seeing that same thing, or are we seeing it sped up a bit at the moment, or is it longer?
Just before COVID hit, they were processing some a little bit faster, but we filed one in the end of March and it still is pending. So I think it's going back to being slow.
The normal slow.
A few more since then that are more recent, and they're still pending. So it'll be interesting to see how those develop over the next few weeks and months. But in other areas, we've seen the EADs come through a lot faster. So they're coming back through. There was a period where they were taking 5 months. They're coming through now in 90 days or less. So that's a great news for E3Ds who are either renewing their EADs or doing first-time EADs. They're coming through a lot faster right now.
Yeah, right. And that goes back to what you were saying before about Australia being such an enticing place. And this is a good segue. I'll go back to you, Lisa. You were saying that you're on a flight and they're not touching any of the food. They can't pour anything for you, but you're getting to the end of that flight. I'll jump back over to you.
So you get to the end of that flight, and once you're landing Sydney, they ask you have to fill out a form that is saying that you abide with the quarantine rules, as well as they ask you to stay on board. They do have nurses that come over, all dressed in PPE, checking the plane to make sure everything's okay before they let you get off the plane. And once you're actually in the airport, it's actually very well organized. They lead you to the right places. They hand you a mask to make sure everyone is wearing one. Then they take you to the nurses section, check your temperature, ask you questions about your health. I was fine. I didn't have any symptoms. Then they led you back to customs. So the e-passport portals are not working at the moment. So you do have to go through manned desk with your passport check, but obviously there's no lines at the moment. And I thought the whole process was actually quite simple. It was easy. I mean, it really helps that there's not many people. And after you go through the custom check, and you're okay, they take you to a line, you wait for a bus, and everyone on that bus goes to the same hotel. So I ended up at the Stoch Hotel, Wentworth, and I feel the whole thing was actually run pretty smoothly. There wasn't at a point where I didn't know what I was doing or at any point. But
just to clarify, when you basically just sort of follow what you're told to do. There's no sort of elections to choose. It's not about picking a hotel or anything. It's just, you're on this bus and we're going to take you to the place.
Exactly. And you do have the army and the police there along the way. So,
okay.
Yeah, don't do it right now, basically.
Not worth it. That's good advice from everyone on the panel. Yeah. So once you do arrive, and I'll keep going through because I think it does help just for everyone to understand. You get to your hotel room. You I assume sort of scurried through, and you get told and given a key and said, this is your room. No key. No, cool. Okay.
No keys. They take you. An army officer takes you up to your room, and then you stay in that room for the next 13 nights.
Okay.
And you leave on the 14th day before 10 a.m. basically.
Okay. So in terms of food, I know a lot of people are asking about food, drink, exercise. Can you get care packages from friends? What's the sort of feel and what goes on in there?
I am naturally more of an introvert. So for me, staying in a room like for 14 days was okay. But for someone who's more of an extrovert, it's probably going to be a bit more of a struggle. You're not allowed to leave the room, and everything that you need is delivered to the room. So with food, there is a selection when you first check in, whether or not you have dietary requirements. And then they take you to the room and your food gets delivered at a certain point in time. So breakfast is between 7:30 and 9:30. Lunch is between, I think it's like 12:30 and 2:30, and dinner between 5:30 and 7:30. So they just knock on the door and they leave food outside for you, and that's it. They're not allowed to come inside the room. In terms of the portion sizes of food, for me, it was fine, but I am more of a delicate eater. And so I actually thought the quality of the food was pretty good, given you're not paying rack rate for a room. So don't expect like room service quality, but it's like takeout quality. And for dinner, they also serve you a 3-course dinner, things like that. So it's actually quite decent. In terms of care packages, you can have a friend bring you stuff. So I had a friend on the first day bring me, I gave her a shopping list. She brought me what I wanted, delivered to reception, and they check it to make sure that, firstly, no alcohol, no outside alcohol, and no magazines and books. But apparently paper is, it can be infected, and so they don't want that coming into the room. And you can buy alcohol from the hotel, and that is limited to 1 bottle per person per day. And when I say a bottle, it's really a half bottle, so it's a carafe. So there's a selection that they have in the room that you can choose from.
Okay. And the last thing I think that people really wanted to know about was exercise. Can you, if you're not allowed to leave the room, is there any sort of shuffled outside for 5 minutes of sunshine, or?
That didn't seem like an option. I didn't go out, and I didn't hear anyone else go out either. So what I do recommend is, my room had Chromecast. So usually in a 4 or 5 star hotel, they usually have that. But if you're worried, bring your own Chromecast and have access to some live streaming, like exercises from Peloton or whatever.
Something. Yep. Okay. Good call. Yeah. Planning ahead for potentially being locked inside.
And given that I was working nights, working New York hours, make sure that if you're doing that, or if you have certain times in the day that you want to be not disturbed, make sure you tell them ahead of time. The nurses do call your room once a day to check up on you. And I didn't tell them specifically. And there was one day I didn't pick up the phone, and I had the police knocking on my door. So
okay.
So make sure that you tell them ahead of time if you want to not be disturbed at a certain period of time, because otherwise it is hard to sleep.
Good to know. Zjantelle, in terms of people that have gone to Australia and they're potentially coming back, now I'd point everyone to the last last regular checkup I did with, I had someone from the Australian consulate on who was talking about the Australian side. And there are limitations for some people, but if you are a resident, you are allowed to leave. A resident of the US, you are allowed to leave. I just want to confirm, entering the US, if you have a valid visa, are you allowed to enter the US right now?
Yes, they're letting people in with visas, yes.
Okay. So yeah, there's that, because I know there's been a bit of a misconception that there's currently sort of the borders are closed, but as far as you're concerned, if you have legal status like any other day, you are allowed to enter.
Yeah, and just like when you leave Australia, you need to show that you've got a footprint already in the US. You would just present those documents. You need to present those to get, at the airport in Australia. You would just present the same ones when you're coming here to show that you regularly reside here, which might be harder for people that are coming with new visas, but people coming with new visas aren't able to get their visas right now anyway.
Yeah, so it's a rarer. What about the green card process? Is that something that's all been held up as well with all of this? I mean, I imagine so, but...
You know what? Actually, we have seen some green card categories speed up. We've seen some of the employment-based green cards, which have, in the last 2 years, there's been a requirement that those people have an interview. And we've actually seen some get approved without an interview, which used to be the case before the current administration required the interview. So they seem to have gone back and approved some without an interview, and the clients have gotten their green card in the mail, which has been awesome. Also, for some family-based cases, if the family is applying for the green card outside the US, so there was the the proclamation that those green cards were going to be suspended from being issued for the next 60 days, on April 22nd. But what we're seeing is that they're still processing all the other documentation on the internal side and much faster than usual. So when you're applying for a green card from outside the US, there's first an application that goes to USCIS in the US. They process and approve part of it. It then goes to the National Visa Centre that then contact the consulates for the appointment. This part is happening so much faster than ever before. So once the consulates reopen, we think that those people might actually get appointments for their green cards faster than pre-COVID, which is
That's
right?
a shocking side effect.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's nice to be able to deliver some good news in these times.
Yeah, for sure. I know a lot of people who are on visas and living in cities, especially like New York, maybe working from home. And you've got as well people like Lisa who are working sort of from home or from abroad. I just want to clarify, if you are on a visa and you're in the United States, what are the processes for are there things we have to consider about working from home?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to finish up one topic for the last one, which is for people that are processing their green cards from within the US, those have been delayed because green card interviews have been cancelled. So we do have clients that were expecting to get their green card interview and green cards. But if you're here in the US, you have a work authorization document, you have a travel document that are valid. So it doesn't affect you too egregiously that it's just a bit disappointing, that's all. So just finish up that. And then with respect to if you are working from home, so if you're working from home and you're on an E3, you may have seen going around a memo that talks about the LCA, there are posting requirements, posting notice requirements attached to an LCA. So if you have been working from home for an amount of time, it's becoming considered an additional work site. And the employer is required to put a posting notice up that it has a foreign employee on an LCA at that new work site. So even though you're the only person working at home at your new work site, you're supposed to either post your LCA, a copy of your LCA on the fridge or somewhere for 10 days. Or what we're also saying is that if the employer notifies you, sends you your LCA or the posting notice to you, that they could use that by email. They could use that in their public access file, that they've notified all the workers at that work site because you are the only worker at that work site. Just clarify, that rule is in effect if you work within the same MSA, which is around about 50 miles from your usual work location. So if your home is within about 50 miles from where the address on your LCA, then that's all you have to do is that posting requirement. If you're actually working further away from that, like say you decided I'm going to go work in California right now, then you're supposed to file a whole brand new LCA and include that work site. So that's something you definitely want to bring up with your attorney as well.
Okay, no, that's and for people who, just to sort of wrap all that up, if you're working outside the US, the immigration, like the legalities of visas and things sort of becomes like sort of null and void effectively.
That's right. And so yes, Australia or another country is way more than 50 miles away from your office. So those people don't, and that's a really good question because we did get that question from a lot of clients that I'm in Australia, what do I have to do about this posting notice? So if you're in Australia, you don't have to worry about that. It's only if you're in the US.
Yeah, fantastic. Jason, that is a good pivot to you because working from home, there may be implications for people that are considering working from home or abroad. Do you mind, is it difficult? Is it easy? What's from a tax or accounting perspective, what do you have to say?
Yeah, sure. From a US perspective, new legislation brought in 2018 removed the home office deductions for individuals, but you can still claim this if you're self-employed and run your own business. So you can put through all of your expenses on Schedule C, which is the income statement of your own business. On the Australia side of things, you can claim working from home deductions, which will be subject to a few tests, like the time spent for work was legitimate and things like that. If you keep records and have all timesheets and things like that, you can claim the allowable expenses, utilities and things like that, or a flat 80 cents per hour that you work from home due to COVID, as long as, you have to do it for work and you're not charging things like your coffees. So I guess the advice on the Aussie side is to just keep timesheets or diary notes in case the ATO asks, but you can definitely claim some deductions on the Aussie side.
Okay, fantastic. So is there anything else that people should be considering if they, have gone from the US and they've gone back to Australia? Is there anything else they should be thinking about sort of more broadly, if from what they might have had in the US, for savings, 401ks, things like that?
Yeah, so that's definitely a great question. It's kind of hard to say because everyone's situation's different, but taking the stance that unfortunately you've been furloughed, you're unemployed, you've had to go back to Australia and you're looking for work, which can be challenging in the current climate, it's probably best to take money from your savings first and shares and your health savings accounts before drawing from your super and 401k. You kind of want to avoid that because in the US on your 401k, if you draw it before you're 15 and a half years old, you will have a 10% penalty on that drawing. You will then be taxed on that in America and then Australia again. And then similar with super, you'll have early withdrawal penalties. But I know that super now, they're allowing early access due to COVID. So you can draw up to $10,000 now and again another $10,000 up till September 24th. And the process for drawing super is actually pretty straightforward. The only thing I would be cautious of is only do it if you really need it, because by taking money out of your super, you're essentially getting short-term gain but long-term pain because you're missing out on all of the growth from that income in your super.
Okay, so yeah, super, it is an option. It's absolutely something that you can consider, but it's something you kind of want to, it's a last resort, basically.
Yeah. And just in terms of the application process, if you have a MyGov account, it'll take you 5 minutes to just answer the questions and then you'll be able to draw it very quickly. In the US with your 401k, you can access it. You would have to prove that, this is due to the COVID situation, your work hours have been cut, you've been quarantined, you've lost your job, things like that. But you can draw up to $100,000 from your 401k as a loan without the 10% early withdrawal penalty because of COVID. And you can essentially keep it as a loan and pay the tax over the next 3 years, or you can actually pay back the loan when things get better and then your 401k is restored.
Okay, great. It's also tax time. So if we, as like we're sort of talking about before, are there online tools in general? Just I know that there's lots of people now sort of thinking, I've got to get my things in order. Are there online tools that people as expats should be looking at, or should they be going, really be going to an accountant to help them with it?
Yeah, so from an Australia perspective, you can use the MyGov portal that allows you to file your own returns online with the ATO. Personally, I find the platform pretty easy, but then again, I am an accountant. Yeah. So if this is difficult or challenging, then definitely reach out to an accountant like myself. From a US perspective, if you're a resident for tax purposes, you can go with TurboTax, and if you're a non-resident, you can use Sprint Tax. If you want to leave your returns in the hands of an expert, though, you can use an accountant like myself, because a lot of people get tripped up in the complexity of having Aussie assets or Aussie income, and how do I state this correctly on my US return?
Okay, so yeah, some important considerations, to make sure, and why you should talk to professionals like all of you three. Zjantelle, just quickly, we've had a couple of questions just to clarify. The working from home, if you're in Australia, people just want to confirm E3s kind of become null and void. You don't require an E3 to work from home for a US company if you're in Australia. Can you just confirm that, please?
Yeah, that's correct. So you only need a visa, a valid visa, when you're working for a US employer physically in the US. So if you're outside of the US, you don't need a US visa. If you're not in Australia and you've gone to Mexico or somewhere else, you just want to double check you're not breaking immigration laws of that country. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really good point for people, because I know some people have sort of said, I'm going to go to another country and wait for embassies and consulates and things. It's important to make sure that you're allowed to be working in those places and actually residing in those places for that temporary amount of time.
And it looks like, should I just clarify that it looks like someone had a question about the LCAs. Is it for existing LCAs? That's exactly the LCAs that it is for. So, because new ones would already go through that process. You have to, do the posting notice for new ones, and that would be part of it. But that whole, posting it from home is also relevant for people whose who are halfway through their E3, and their employer should be sending them a copy of their LCA or the posting notice that was developed at the time of the LCA, so that they can then keep that in the public access file.
Okay.
So just wanted to clarify that, because I saw that question.
No, it's a good one. Lisa, you're in that position, you're in Australia. Just so I understand and people understand, what's your plan? You're headed to a consulate basically when they open at this stage?
Yes, I have an appointment on July 20th. So hopefully by the end of New York. I did try to explore the mail-in option, but my lawyers have told me not to do that for the time being. They just didn't think it was going to be reliable, and I didn't want to take the risk, which is why I'm going to go forward with the interview. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have any last tips or tricks for people? I know you mentioned making sure you've got some workouts planned and some movies. Are there anything else that you think people just need to have in their mind before they get on a plane?
Just make sure that you have, like what you need, and make sure you have someone in Australia where you're going to that's going to be able to help you out if you need anything from outside the hotel. You are not allowed to leave, so just bear that in mind.
Expect that.
And yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You've got to be a hermit for the next 13 months.
Zjantelle, to pull out your crystal ball for momentarily, I know, a lot of people want to know, when our embassy's open, when a consulate's opening, and I know we've sort of touched on this the whole time. Do we have any inkling, or what's your professional opinion?
It's I wish I had a crystal ball. When the consulate's closed in March, on March 18th, or the Australian consulate's closed, appointments were still available to book at that point in May, right, or in April. So we booked those, and then they got cancelled. So then we could book in May, and we booked those, then they got cancelled. So it'll just be telling to see what happens in June with the consulates that we have people booked at. And if they go ahead, great. It means they're reopened. I think it's a good sign that Australia has resumed the mail-in. We did do mail-in when the consulates first closed. We did a couple of mail-ins, and people got their passports back in 3 days. So we're going to try it. So Lisa will let you know how it goes. But like Lisa, everyone's case is different. So there are some clients that I have that I probably wouldn't recommend the mail-in to, actually. So I think it is definitely, don't just rush to do a mail-in, because depending on your own immigration history and the new employer that you're going to be working with and what the role is, in person might be better for you. So, and I'm sure Lisa's attorney's made that analysis for her. So, yeah.
No, that's a really good point. It does come down to personal circumstances. It does, it's different for everyone, and there is no sort of sweeping rule. And the other point you made is that while there are appointments available, there have been appointments available for the last few months, but they kind of keep cancelling blocks of them, and we don't know for sure what the outcome's going to be.
What we've been seeing is the cancellation happen in 2-week intervals. So in the beginning of May, so in the end of April, beginning of May got cancelled, around April 15th, or the first 2 weeks in May got cancelled, while the end of May was still available. And then as of last week, then all the end of May's got cancelled. So I think after May 15th, around May 15th, we're going to see what's in store for June. So I'm hanging out. I'm in hope, but I'm not hope. I was on the phone with Paris, a couple of businesses in France on Monday, and they reopened. They have a soft reopening on May 11th. And so I asked, what's happening at the government offices opening. And even though they're reopening, restaurants are not reopening. If they reopen, it won't be until June 15th at half capacity. And the travel industry there are prepared for it not to gear up until next year, April next year. So we have people booked there, so it will be interesting to see what happens if they can even get in, because right now you can't even move within the country.
Can't fletch it. Yeah.
So while we have people booked in places, it's going to be interesting to see if, even if their appointment's not cancelled, are they going to be able to get into the country, and out of the country as well.
And
a few different logistics other than just the consulates opening up at play that we have to be aware of and
for sure. And I think that link you mentioned before, IATA, is a good one just to use as a reference, because it's worth at least checking if you can get into the country before anything else. Is there anything else you want to add, on the future of all these nice people watching and listening for advice, is there anything else you sort of want to add? I know you've written some great articles that I've got on links to on my website, and I'll make sure that I've linked the contact details of all three of our panelists and some great information that they've contributed, and some links they might have mentioned today in an email after this. But sorry, Zjantelle.
Yeah. So I always close with just check if you're still in the US, just check your I-94. Even if you think your visa is valid until May next year and it's probably fine, check it. Because we had a client 2 weeks ago that checked his. He had no reason to check it because he wasn't getting furloughed. He's an employer actually. So he wasn't getting furloughed. He wasn't getting this. He wasn't getting that. But he happened to check it, and it had expired in February. So we were able to correct it. But if we hadn't corrected it and he left the US, it would have been disastrous. So just everyone check it. Even if you don't think you need to, just check it.
Yep. No, excellent advice. Last thing, Zjantelle, in your sort of personal opinion, with the executive order that came down and there was a mention of non-immigrant visas sort of tacked onto the end of the big part about the green cards. Is there anything you'd like to add for people? I know there are some people that are a little bit concerned about that mention.
Yeah. So what I've been sort of saying towards that is we were all really nervous when the executive order, Trump tweeted about it 2 days before he actually released the order. And so there was a lot of nervousness about what it was going to contain. What it did contain pretty much reiterated what was already in effect, right? It said, we're not going to issue any green cards for the next 30 days for people outside the US. Well, those people can't get green cards anyway because the consulates are closed, and that's how you get the green cards, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like reiterating, and I think for the purposes of, people in Middle America don't know what's going on with visas and that people can't get green cards right now. So I think it was almost a statement to the rest of the world, hey, by the way, we've kind of suspended immigration through all of this.
Yep.
So I think that if anything, there was a letter, he says item 6 of that did say that he's going to be requesting advice from from congressmen, and there was a letter today to Trump advising Trump that they think that H-1Bs should be suspended, that OPT should be suspended, and for a 30 to 60 day period, and the H-2B program were particularly the categories that were brought up. So hopefully the E3 remains under the radar. There was a sweeping argument of, all non-immigrant visas because they're taking jobs from Americans. But it does still seem to be like new visas. Most of it is for new visas. So if you're here on an H-1B or you're here on a visa already, I think that similarly to the other executive order, those people should not be affected. In fact, they even in their letter talk about protecting the people that are already here. So yeah, hopefully it won't affect too many of our clients.
Yeah. No, okay, it's good to know. I mean, and again, that's
what's actually already happening, right? The consulates are closed for the next 30 days anyway. So new visas are really not being issued from outside the US.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's like that again.
No, and again, that's, we don't know for sure, and we're keeping an eye on things, and I'll be sure to share anything that Zjantelle posts. But yeah. Jason,
have an eye on it for sure.
For sure. Jason, is there anything you want to add for people, what they should be thinking about? We've got tax time July 15. Make sure even if you're back in Australia, if you were here last year, make sure you're thinking about tax. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah. So everyone's got more time now. It's July 15. It's not April. So you can still file everything on time and hopefully get a refund if that's the return that you've earned. If you owe a bill, you only need to actually pay this July 15, even if you've already filed now. Any interest or penalties for not paying before July 15 are waived as a result of COVID. So just know you've got time to get it done. Try get an accountant or try get yours done on time. There's no interest if you do it today and you owe money. So
okay.
Yeah.
No, fantastic. That's do your taxes. That's a good take-home message, and check your I-94. That's fantastic. Well, thank you all three of you very much. I know I've run a bit longer than I had intended to, but I thought it was all very important information for those watching. I hope we've answered some of the questions that you had. Next week, we'll be looking into workplaces and workspaces and returning to work and talking about healthcare, and got some great people on next week. I'll be sending out some links, especially links to the three panelists and some information that they've shared. So everyone knows, I also host Friday night drinks and trivia on Friday nights, 5:30 Eastern. So you can find that in the links that I send as well. And the last thing is that we do send out a feedback form, and we'd love it if you could fill it in, because it gives us a bit of an idea of what you're thinking, what you got out of the panel. If you've got follow-up questions for panelists, you can fill that into the feedback form. And we love hearing from you, because that way we can grow these regular checkups into something that really helps you every single week. So thank you, Jason, Zjantelle, Lisa, very much for taking your time out today. And thank you everyone for watching. As my grandpa always said, hop to it and stay well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.